It is not trash. It is street finds we are talking about, and I am pleased to introduce you to our next guest. He's a wonderful visual artist. His name is Ramin Salimi. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here, Ramin.
Good morning.
And this was kind of, you're kind of like the accidental artist. Tell us how you got involved in the arts.
That's right. Well, it all started less than a year ago when my son dropped some paint on his shoes when he was helping me painting the garage. I couldn't get mad at him because I was the one who gave him the brush. So instead of getting mad, I threw more paint on his shoes, and he threw paint on me and my clothing, and before you know it, we had a line of clothing going, which my 11-year-old daughter named Swish Dash Arts.
I love
so
it.
she's my marketing consultant, and her friends and her are my most strict judges and critiques. So before you know it, we started coming across treasures on the streets of NDG, actually streets of Montreal, and this one particular piece,
This
which
one
is
here, the screen?
yes, which is a door molding from a typical NDG house from about a century ago. This was cut
really?
from a Douglas fir tree from British Columbia. The original tree would have been several centuries old. So it could have been a tragedy, three tragedies. One, that the original tree was cut. Two, that the consumer who doesn't know the value of this antique piece of wood, throw it out in the garbage. And three, it would be me that know the value of this beautiful piece of wood, let it go to the garbage truck.
How did you go from the clothing to starting to have an eye when you're walking the streets of Montreal?
When I saw this particular piece,
this was it.
This was it. I could not let this 100-year-old piece of wood go to garbage.
So what do you look for? Obviously, you know, you're walking around, but you were telling me it has to speak to you. So
That's right.
how does something jump out at you? What sort of qualities does it have to have?
I never look for anything.
Okay.
They come looking for me. They kind of find me and my kids. You know, if you walk the streets of Montreal, they're extremely generous with their givings, with their treasures.
Right.
You find pieces of antique wood. You find this beautiful piece of wood, which I found on Saint-Urbain Street on the plateau, which is about 15 pounds. You look at it, you
15 pounds?
That's right. You look at it, you go, this is a crime to let go to garbage. It's calling me. I'm going to pick it up until it speaks to me. Then it speaks to me and it says, I want to be, in this particular case, the Om sign, which is the sign, which is the chant that is chanted in yoga classes.
Right.
The beginning, the middle, and the end of everything in the universe. So she wants to be Om, she becomes Om. She wants to be a frame holder, this one becomes a frame holder.
And what's your third piece that you brought
that's
along
an African mask which I found on NDG Avenue in
It's amazing
NDG.
what people throw out.
That's right. That's right. That's why I call them treasures.
They are definitely
Yes.
treasures. Tell us a little bit about the reaction you're getting from people to your work. What's been the feedback?
People love it. They amaze it. We actually, another thing that we do is we decorate our own street with the treasures that we find. And when we do that with my children, what happens is that in about 1 or 2 hours of work, we end up meeting more people than in 10 years that we lived in that neighborhood. And people come, they make comments about it, they say we love it, and some people even said we want to join the movement. We said, welcome, well, the movement is free. Find treasures on the street, turn them into art, and do whatever you want.
So it's really been a community building, more than just, you know, for your personal enjoyment, obviously, but you're helping build a community with this project.
It is slowly becoming that, in the sense that the community, people, adults in the community are taking note of it, but children in the community, as I was saying to you before, on pet days in school, I end up with a bunch of kids usually,
Right.
whom sometimes I take to my workshop and I give them paint and pieces of treasure, and I tell them go crazy, and they go crazy, and their parents love it too.
Well, and then you warn the parents to make sure they wear clothes they can get dirty when they come to your place. Your place must be the hub for all the kids in your neighborhood.
It kind of is, yes.
I mean, I'm just thinking about my own childhood. I would love to go to a place like
Yes.
that where you can feel free
That's right.
to create, and I think that's
right.
very important for
In
children.
my home, you are allowed to make as much mess as you want, as long as you clean it at the end and before you go home, which they all do, because they want to come
I am
back.
coming over to your
Please
place.
bring your children.
I absolutely will. You have an exhibition going on in NDG right
Yes,
now.
sir.
Tell us about it.
Yes, sir. We will have an exhibition as of November 1st with
Okay.
a vernissage on November 4th. It's also a fundraiser for the Royal Victoria Hospital's neonatal clinic, which basically saved my daughter. My daughter was born almost 3 months early, and she spent the first 87 days of her life at the neonatal clinic at the Royal Victoria Hospital. So she is now the youngest donor in the hospital. Every year on her birthday, she goes with a big check with flowers, chocolates for the hospital staff to thank for her life. And we will do everything for the rest of our life as her parents to serve this wonderful institution.
That's a great story. That's a great note to end the interview on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being
My
here,
pleasure.
Ramin.
November 4th, vernissage at Shaika Cafe in NDZ.
You can go and meet Ramin. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Breakfast Television right after.